my name is Natanya, and this PowerPoint is on the literature review that I did for Communications 3321 on the topic of the water crisis among First Nations communities in Canada. In this PowerPoint for the agenda, I will be providing some background information on this topic as well as be stating my thesis statement, and then I will be providing 3 pro and con viewpoints in relation to my thesis statement. However, the main bulk of this PowerPoint and literature review was the analysis portion, which I used the Lewis 2008 Word and World, a Critical Thinking Reader textbook for the analysis, and then I will be providing the conclusion and, of course, my references. Safe and clean drinking water is an essential resource needed by all humans and would seem to be an abundant resource accessible to all within Canada. However, this has not been the case, as many First Nations communities today do not have access to this essential resource. Many individuals question why this issue has persisted for decades, despite being a country with one of the largest freshwater reserves, Carmen et al. Noted. On many of the reserves, the water accessible to the First Nations have elevated levels of contaminants like E. coli, where the number of waterborne diseases within these communities is 26 times higher than the national average, Black 2021. But some seems to be a problem with a simple solution. Many studies have identified and discussed different underlying issues as to why the water crisis is still persistently occurring within First Nations communities today. However, through this literature review, we can gain a deeper understanding of the factors that contribute to the issue by comparing writers' works. Multiple sources have a similar definition to the word marginalization. However, this paper used the definition from dictionary.com, no date, where it states the fact of placing a person or thing in a position of lesser importance, influence, or power. There are different branches of marginalization. However, this paper focused on social and economic marginalization. So this is when groups of people have less access to basic services or opportunities. For the example of this paper for First Nations, these individuals are seen as less important or have a disadvantage to the access of services or opportunities. This thesis statement of this literature review was that the water crisis among First Nations community is a partial result of marginalization within Canada. Through this literature review, readers can understand the adversity that First Nations in Canada face and how marginalization plays a significant role in this issue, specifically in the water crisis. When Europeans arrived in North America, they had so many plans and ideals for this new land. However, their agendas did not leave room for Indigenous people that were already living there. Their land and resources were seized as they were placed onto reserves. But the land that they were displaced into were not acceptable for living. For example, the Amjinun Reserve resides on a land known as Chemical Valley because of the emissions that are spewed onto this land from corporations like Shell. Due to the reserves and socioeconomic gaps, these individuals are reliant on the support of the government. Though governments are providing support in ensuring that the water crisis is dissolved, they have provided insufficient funding, short-term solutions, lack of regulation, and inability to meet promises. Blue 2021. In comparison to the support provided to the rest of Canada in terms of clean water, socioeconomic marginalization was evident in the inadequate funding and attention provided to First Nations communities. Lang et al. 2022. As agenda setters, the media has not provided enough coverage on these topics, causing the public to not be informed or understand the severity of this issue. As a marginalized community in Canada, the issue of the First Nations face are often devalued and underrepresented in media. Consolo 2017. The research paper from Dixon Anderson, 2018, discusses the cultural values around water among First Nations communities, specifically in collecting and consuming water from natural sources. However, products from industrialization and urbanization has caused a decrease in the quality of water that is accessible to these communities. However, due to government structures within Canada, it is difficult to figure out whether it is truly the government's responsibility to maintain clean water on reserves. Water is regulated on reserves under protocols but is not enforceable, leading to a lack of obligation. The theories around argumentative writing, which were sourced from the Lewis textbook 2008, will be used in this literature review to help determine which position is stronger. In this paper's research, there was a limited amount of resources available on this topic, which is not surprising considering the topic of marginalization and the pro-viewpoint that marginalized groups are underrepresented in the media. This means that it's just as important to critically analyze the sources used. For instance, the source used from the Journal of Water and Health specialized in the health implications of waterborne microorganisms and chemical substances. In the paper, Dixon-Anderson 2018, they discussed the quality of water, which is reasonable within their scope, but they discussed how this related to First Nations traditions and cultures, which is outside the scope of their expertise. Right now, there are many misconceptions about First Nations communities due to information filled with flaws and biases being provided to the public. This can cause a strain in the relationship with Indigenous communities and add to the misrepresentation of marginalized groups. This paper's statement that these communities have cultural practices that restrict them from drinking only natural sourced water shows poor deductive reasoning and naturalistic fallacies. As people of one race do not possess the same beliefs as well do not necessarily practice the same traditions. Lewis, 2008. As well, there is a belief that the water crisis is an issue that is being handled and is making progress. But the public believes this because it is coming from a reputable source like the government or professors. This is known as appeal to good character. Using the term colonization attaches negative connotative language to the paper. This influences the thoughts and feelings of the audience, having readers realize the negative effects placed onto First Nations as a marginalized group. Lewis, 2008. Canada's past is not a truth that many want to realize, but it's a reality that First Nations communities experience every day through the lack of safe and reliable drinking water. Negative connotation is avoided through the use of loaded language that many politicians and CEOs use in order to conceal misconduct. Lewis, 2008, page 43. In the article Boil Water Advisories and Federal Inaction, Chambers, 2017, the writer describes the exhibition of North America as the development of Western societies. Instead, she does not focus on those that were negatively impacted. Like many Canadians, I was unaware of the water crisis among First Nations communities in Canada. I was unaware until my friend had brought up the topic in a conversation. By educating myself on this topic, I hope to inform those around me and hopefully help reach the goal to eliminate this problem by ensuring all Canadians have access to clean and safe drinking water and ensuring that the public is informed. The key thing that stood out to me in this analysis portion was how literature and information, if not analyzed properly and peer-reviewed, can negatively impact and cause drawbacks in the water crisis and the issue of marginalization within First Nations communities. Like many Canadians, here are my references, and thank you for listening.